Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, tonight, I want to speak to the hearts that ain't quiet, that walk through life with the ghost of someone they once loved deeply, still lingering in the corridors of their soul. I want to talk about time and how it doesn't always heal. Sometimes time breaks, and sometimes that breaking is sacred. There is a deception the enemy loves to whisper into our ears that distance means detachment, that space equals strength, and that walking away is proof of power. But I tell you, that is a lie from the pit of hell. Because when two hearts have been knit together, even imperfectly, even bruised by human failure, that bond is not easily undone. And when a man chooses to step back, when he chooses silence over healing, pride over humility, absence over effort, he may believe he is in control. He may believe time will justify his actions. But deep within the soul of the woman he walked away from, there's a quiet unraveling, a slow ache that creeps in moment by moment, day by day. Let me tell you something I've seen over and over again. You cannot simply erase someone who gave you the kind of love that reached into your broken places and tried to make you whole. And for her, it doesn't matter if you stopped calling, if you moved on like it was easy, because her love wasn't built on convenience. Her love was rooted in sacrifice, in dreams shared, in prayers whispered late into the night when she thought you were her future. And when you left, it wasn't just your footsteps she heard walking away. It was the sound of hope being silenced. Time has a strange way of stretching pain. What hurts on day 1 feels unbearable on day 30, on day 90, when every quiet moment reminds her of what used to be. And though she may not show it on the outside, though she might smile, go to work, raise the kids, serve in church, her soul feels that tearing. Because real connection doesn't vanish. Real love, even when flawed, leaves a fingerprint on the heart. You may think your distance is giving her room to think, to grow, or even to learn her lesson. But the truth is your absence speaks louder than your presence ever did. It says you weren't worth the fight. It says you were easy to let go. And those words echo in the hollow spaces of her heart until she begins to believe them. But friend, let me warn you, God sees. God hears her tears in the midnight hour. And though you may have stepped away thinking time will fix what was broken, it often only deepens the wound. Because love, real love, doesn't walk away hoping someone breaks. It stays. It fights. It forgives. That's the love Christ has for you. And that's the love he calls you to mirror. Time has a voice. It speaks in the stillness and the long silences between phone calls that never come. In the late night moments when sleep won't visit and memories play like old films on repeat. Time doesn't forget what the heart wants to hide. And when someone who once held a deep place in your soul goes missing emotionally, spiritually, physically, time begins its work. It doesn't always heal first. No, it often reveals. It begins to expose the truth that was too clouded by emotion to see. It pulls back the curtain on all the compromises, the red flags, little moments where she told herself it's fine when it wasn't. But it also highlights the depth of her love. Time, like a divine mirror, forces a woman to face herself, not the version she tried to be for him, not the mask she wore to keep peace, but the woman she truly is. And that confrontation is no small thing. It's holy ground. It's where God begins to whisper identity back into her bones. But while time is revealing her truth, it's also echoing his absence. Each day without accountability, without effort, without humility, drives another wedge in the place where reconciliation could have lived. And the longer he stays gone, the more clearly she sees that love isn't sustained by promises, but by presence. She realizes that someone who truly loves you doesn't need to disappear to prove a point. They show up. They communicate. They humble themselves. You see, what time reveals is far more powerful than what time erases. Because God is not slow to act, as some count slowness. He uses time as a tool of refinement. The heat of waiting, the pressure of loneliness, the fire of self-examination. And it is in that crucible that a woman begins to rise not as a victim of abandonment, but as a vessel of divine wisdom. So If you're wondering what she's doing in your absence, don't just assume she's waiting, longing, breaking. She's being transformed. She's learning how to listen again, not to your voice, but to God's. And that may hurt more than anything, because now she knows what she deserves. And she's no longer willing to settle for a man who only comes back when it's convenient. She's learned that true love doesn't leave and hope time will do the talking. True love stays and does the work. There's something powerful about the silence that follows a goodbye that wasn't meant to be permanent. It's in that silence where the heart begins to speak more clearly. And for her, every passing day that you stay away doesn't just feel like absence, it feels like abandonment. Not the kind you shout about or cry over every hour, but the kind that settles deep in the bones. The kind that makes a woman question not just the relationship, but her worth, her heart. There comes a point when the mind catches up to what the heart has been whispering all along. She starts to realize that love, real love, is not built on confusion, inconsistency, or emotional starvation. It is not a puzzle she must constantly solve or a battle she must endlessly fight alone. She begins to see that what she mistook for passion was often just manipulation, and what she called chemistry was sometimes just chaos in disguise. And it's not bitterness that brings this revelation, it's clarity. Birthed through the silence, grown through the ache, nurtured by grace. The fog begins to lift, not because she suddenly stops caring, but because she's learned to care for herself. She's realized that love doesn't demand that she shrink, beg, or chase. It doesn't make her doubt her value or question her sanity. It shouldn't make her second guess her instincts or feel like she's always the one chasing. And the longer you're gone, the less she feels the need to wait for someone who was never truly willing to fight for her. You see, love doesn't vanish, it transforms. Sometimes it hardens into resolve. Sometimes it burns into purpose. And in the space where you used to be, she's learning to stand alone, not in bitterness, but in wisdom. She's praying differently now, not Lord, bring him back, but Lord, bring me closer to you. That's what distance does when God is involved. It becomes holy ground for growth. And if you thought your absence would make her love you more, you may be surprised to find that it's made her love herself enough to finally let go. There is a moment of shift that happens deep within a woman when she realizes that the person she once waited for, the one she cried over and prayed for, may never return the way she hoped. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins slowly, quietly, almost unnoticed. It begins when she opens her eyes one morning and realizes that the ache in her chest doesn't sting quite as sharply. It begins when she laughs at something small, something ordinary, and for a split second forgets the weight she's been carrying. That is the moment her healing begins, and it terrifies the enemy, because a woman who begins to heal becomes dangerous to darkness. The truth is, time doesn't just reveal and refine, it rebuilds. And while the man who walked away may believe she's crumbling, God is doing sacred work in the background. He's restoring her soul brick by brick, prayer by prayer. Time has a way of sobering our fantasies. She begins to recognize that her longing was more for what could have been than what truly was. She begins to see clearly that the love she was pouring out was never being returned in full measure. And it dawns on her not as a flash, but as a gentle unfolding that real love doesn't play hide and seek with your worth. Real love doesn't vanish when things get hard. It stands firm, it speaks life, it stays. And yet there's still that ache. Because even when you know the truth, healing doesn't always come without pain. But now that pain is different. It's not desperation. It's not begging. It's the pain of muscles being rebuilt after they were torn. It's the ache of a heart that's growing stronger, not weaker. It's holy pain sanctified by the hand of God himself, who is doing deep work in her spirit. He's showing her that she was never unloved, only misvalued by someone who didn't know how to see her. And in the quiet hour, when the enemy tries to whisper lies into her thoughts, when he says she'll never find better, when he tempts her to doubt her decision or her worth, she now has an answer. It's not a scream, It's not a fight. It's a whisper back to the heavens, I know whose I am. Because time has taught her that God is not slow in healing, He is deliberate. And every day without Him, she walks closer into the arms of the one who never left. Her joy is no longer tied to His presence. Her peace no longer depends on His apology. She is free, and that freedom, birthed in fire, is a testimony that cannot be shaken. There's a turning point, a sacred shift, when she no longer waits for Him to come back, not out of anger or resentment, but out of revelation. She begins to understand that some absences are actually divine protection, that some goodbyes are really God's hand pulling her from the edge of a life that was never meant to be hers. The longer she goes without His voice, the more she begins to recognize the voice of the one who truly loves her, the one who formed her, who sees her, who calls her beloved even when she feels broken. And something begins to rise in her, a quiet strength, forged not in comfort but in fire. It's not the kind of strength that brags or shouts. It's the kind that bends but does not break. It's the kind of strength that smiles at the storm because she knows who commands the winds and waves. What once felt like abandonment now feels like deliverance. What once made her feel less than now fuels her understanding that she was made for more. She doesn't need closure from a man who refused to give her clarity. She doesn't need explanations to validate her pain. Because the more she walks with God, the less she craves what once held her captive. She is learning to live again, not just survive, to breathe deeply, to dream freely, and to love herself the way she once begged someone else to. The tears she cried are not wasted. They've watered the soil of her soul, and now something beautiful is blooming. And yes, there are still moments of memory, still flashes of what was, but they no longer paralyze her. They pass through her like wind through trees, notice, but no longer able to uproot her. Because she has rooted herself in truth, in purpose, in the unwavering love of a Savior who has never and will never walk away. And that truth carries her forward, no longer tethered to a past she has finally forgiven. She's walking lighter now, freer, full of holy fire. Not because He's gone, but because she's finally returned to herself. And so, my friend, if you find yourself in the quiet ache of distance, in the long shadow of someone who left, let me remind you, this is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your rise. The longer she goes without Him, the more heaven rewrites the chapters of her heart with healing, with clarity, with strength that can only come from the hand of God. She may have once been broken, but now she is becoming whole, not through His return, but through God's restoration. You see, love that is real never asks you to shrink, to beg, or to lose yourself. And the absence of false love often becomes the presence of true grace. She is not a woman lost, she is a woman found. Found by her Creator. Found by the truth. Found by the fire that has refined her into something far more radiant than before. She is rising not in bitterness, but in power. Let this be your reminder tonight. When people walk away, let them walk. Because the one who walks with you will never leave you nor forsake you. And in His presence you will find peace, strength, and purpose greater than the pain you once endured. Let the past be the soil and let God be the gardener. He is not finished with you yet. Keep walking, keep trusting, and let His love write the next beautiful chapter of your life.